Because if I'm going to spend the time to go through and experience your story and really try and connect with you, I want to know that this is something that you've cared enough to prepare it, to present it, to connect with me with these characters, that you care about these characters in such a way that I'm going to feel a deeply meaningful experience. Every time I crack open a script, I'm hoping that this character in some way brings some revelation to me, some sort of beautiful experience, or that the conflicts in some way are insightful or meaningful.
Do great writers plan out their stories, or do they discover them as they write?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's an interesting question. It's something that mostly just writers care about, because in the end, nobody cares. Just give me a good story. I don't care what your method is. I don't care if you have a formula or not, as long as I'm fascinated and engaged. And if R.R. Martin, I'm going to cite him again. He uses the metaphor of the gardeners and the architects, or the pantsers and the plotters, or the Stephen Kings or the Blake Snyder's. It's people that either go by your gut or you plan everything out. And ultimately, it comes down to whatever your process is your process, and it's fine. Like most of the time, working, like when I'm in the studio, and I'm, working with different producers, or I'm engaging like a group of writers, like we're all working together on the same script. Most of the time, we're not talking process. We don't talk like, okay, what exactly is your inciting incident? Where's your impetus? Where's your midpoint? Things like that. Most of those things, it would, most of the time people would be just kind of like, oh, don't talk to me about guru stuff, But I also think there's, at the same time, all of us are obsessed with it. We're like, every writer I know is obsessed with process and method and what they deeply care about. And the funniest thing is people are like, well, there's no such thing. I don't want to be formulaic. I don't want to be formula. Formula is the ultimate profanity, the ultimate blasphemy in writing. And yet, we all have different methods and processes. I think the great artist, and by great artist, the artists that produce stuff that speaks to us, that keeps speaking to us. Those are artists that are constantly curious and challenging themselves, and maybe they've found a certain metaphor. Like there's that famous, I think Tarantino sat in on I think it was a screenwriting class, and somebody said, interesting, have you ever noticed that all your stories are about, your estrangement or relationship with your father? And he's like, well, I'm paraphrasing, but from what I heard, he said, he's like, that's very interesting. Now that I know that, I never want to think about that again.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting, because it's, he's like, yeah, maybe it informs in some way these metaphors, but I don't know. All I know is that I care deeply about it. And that is all you have to know, caring deeply about it. Like, I put out Story by Numbers a few years ago. And in a big way, a lot of people don't get this, but the name is a joke. Story by Numbers is a joke. The idea that you can reduce stories to simply just, filling in painting, as if paint by numbers, you can just fill in different things. If you just follow this formula, you'll get the story exactly. But ultimately what I was trying to do was approach this idea of, here are all the tools that I've learned over the years from working with all these different writers, directors, producers that I really respect and have learned a lot from. And I've kind of collected them to become my method. And the idea is that I hand that over to anybody else, and then some things percolate into their method and some things don't. But ultimately, it's the conversation that gets us writing. And to me, it doesn't matter what you have inside you, as long as you're writing, as long as you're producing. That's when if you want to follow, the basics, both stuff of like, this is the proper way to make a screenplay. Page 15, you have to have the inciting incident, those things. Fine, like if that works for your formula. The most important thing is that it gets you writing and it gets you engaging in the process. Like Kurt Vonnegut always said, he said, just, I don't care if, you're a janitor or you're a corporate CEO, just go write poems. Just spend a week writing a poem. And the more you write a poem, Don't write it because you're going to become a celebrated writer. Don't write it because you're going to change the world. Write it because it gives you a better sensibility. It helps you engage the world. You start to just putting forth the effort of looking at a flower or engaging your experience and thinking about it and then trying to put that into words that take on embodiment. That act, that process turns you into it helps you experience life in a more meaningful way. And I think that's what it matters. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with, the stuff that I write, is that ultimately it helps people become more curious, maybe more skeptical, but ultimately want to engage life in this more meaningful way.
I think you'd said previously that, some writers don't want to outline because they want to be the audience as well. I'm kind of paraphrasing that,
sure,
but
yeah.
I love that. But then you also talked about Ron Mita's 24 plot points,
exactly.
which did incredibly well, and people really gravitated toward that. And they're like, where can I find more about that?
Oh, okay.
So it's not all just sort of loose throwing story ideas to the wind. There is some structure to it.
Sure, yeah. Like when it comes down, I think Ron Mita is a perfect example of that. He's a fantastic writer, a really good mentor. And most of the stuff he taught in class was like, by the way, don't mention this in the studio. Like, do not talk about any of this to the producers. You'll embarrass me. He was a story nerd that didn't want anyone to know he was a story nerd.
Okay,
which is
I love
hilarious
it.
about him. Like, he's brilliant. I love the guy. But I think ultimately, okay, so there's the advice of how do you make it in the industry, right? And then there's the advice of how do you tell a good story? And to me, I'm less interested in how you make it in the industry. Like, I've had 20 years working in the industry, and right now it's a show.
Right.
It's not good.
Right.
And right now there's a lot of denigration of the art, of the artists, of the people who are trying to create a human experience. And I think ultimately anybody who's saying, hey, I have the secret for making it in the industry is... I think they're not realizing either A, how lucky they are, or they're trying to, sell you some shovels to the gold mine, that's why I'm more interested in, I'm not that interested in saying, hey, I have all the secrets to making it big. I haven't achieved even close to what I'd hoped to set out to. And yet, at the core of it, whether I'm, delivering pizzas or whether I'm working in a studio, I'm always going to be an artist and I'm always going to tell stories. And I think that is more important and more sacred. And ultimately, I think that's the reason. If you're engaging story on that level, then the rest of it is kind of, they say luck is opportunity meeting preparation. And what I'm advocating for is preparation, prepare, level up. This is the time, definitely with where the industry is right now, level up your skills and engage what really is meaningful to you about story. And when you sit there and confront the page, and when you sit there and lose yourself in these worlds, and whether it's, going by the seat of your pants or plotting it out, it doesn't matter. It just helps when plotting out. For example, starting out, I didn't want to plot anything out. I just wanted to ride by the seat of my pants. And I wrote 4 novels that were terrible. Well, they just didn't end well. And then I started learning about plotting, and then started learning, okay, actually, this is actually helping me direct my unconscious, connect with the metaphors, and make it mean something. And then little by little, you start to get to a point where it's like, okay, now I can deconstruct this. Now that I've got this story structure down, I'm going to put this aside. But ultimately, when people say, you need to outline or you need a story structure, ultimately it depends on, a lot of that has to do with medium, who the client is, who the audience is, and what the expectations are. A novel is a lot looser because you got, 180,000 words, 90,000 words to get your audience to care. Usually you have 1 paragraph, but you got a lot more freedom. As the sitcom, you've got 22 minutes to engage somebody and to make it meaningful, or they're out,
And when you tell others about the Kurt Vonnegut quote, which is whether someone's a CEO or a janitor to just write poems, do people wince at that and say, well, there's no money in that. I want to do something that sells. And then you say, well, do you really love story? I don't know. Is that something, if someone doesn't want to
says I
engage,
want to do something that sells, I'm like, yeah, then okay. pay attention to what's selling. The thing of it is I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know, and I don't think anyone knows what the market wants. I have some ideas of where I think the market's going, and I think it's very interesting. But ultimately, if you're trying to predict, well, I know that this sold, so I'm going to do my version of this, or I know that this is provocative. And sure, write a stunt script, absolutely. I think the most important thing is, put your stuff out there, see what comes of it. I just think that when it comes to me as an audience member, I want to care deeply, and I want to know that you care deeply. Because if I'm going to spend the time to go through and experience your story and really try and connect with you, I want to know that this is something that you've cared enough to prepare it, to present it, to connect with me with these characters, that you care about these characters in such a way that I'm going to feel a deeply meaningful experience. Every time I crack open a script, I'm hoping that this character in some way brings some revelation to me, some sort of beautiful experience, or that the conflicts in some way are insightful or meaningful. And so when somebody says, well, how do I make it in the industry? There is no answer to that. Get lucky, be born into it, sure. Or get really, really good and agree with everyone who criticizes you. There's a lot of that.
Sure.
Hollywood in particular is an industry. It's corporate, and there is a big culture of agreeable people succeed, but they don't usually make good art. Most great art is produced from disagreeable people.
Wow, that's great.
And I tend to think I lean more on I'm a professional. I know how to engage people on the level that they're working through. But ultimately, the artists that really speak to me, that get me really excited, are the ones who are saying, you guys, this is why it's all messed up. This is why, let's look at how this is all one big contradiction. It's the contradictions that have the revelations. And it's the artists that are not just saying, oh yeah, whatever you want, I'll just make it pretty. It's the artists that say, I don't want to just make it pretty, I want to make it mean something. And when they make it mean something, then you feel the obsession, you feel that connection.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.